Bulge.
Let me see your vulge.
Let me see your vulva. Too far? Not far enough?
Nah, plenty. I think that was like right where far meets like
Perfect.
too far, you know?
Ah, that's fair. You know what?
No, vulva. I always think that's a car.
I always do
vulva?
too. That's a nice vulva you drive
Yeah.
there.
And everyone's like, excuse me?
Hey, little mama, what year's your vulva?
And they're like, 1990? What do you mean?
What do you mean?
I was born. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of True Crime Drunks. I am Wes McBee, and with me, as always, Holly Lee. I'm a tad bit under the weather today, so I will be sounding a little bit different. But we're going to do a unique episode that we've been excited for and wanting to do for some time now. And that is to dive into somewhat of the psychology of serial killers and murderers, which, you know, we're not experts, and actually doing deep dives would be episodes that would last tens of hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
So we're going to start skimming the surface, and then maybe as time goes on, we'll come back and build upon episodes of this and kind of gain more knowledge and do more research. But kind of wanted to start dipping our toes in a little bit.
Dipping our toesies. Our tootsies, as a lot of people hate to hear.
That's like a super, like, I don't know. I feel like if you hear that outside of Utah, someone would look at you and be like, what the fuck did you just say?
The fuck did you just say to me?
Have you ever seen Office Space?
Office Space.
The stapler, and where he, like, gets, like, put under hypnosis and then hates his job.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes from that is when the guy who works at the office is talking to his neighbor who works in construction. And he's all like, and he's trying to get him to go work construction. He's like, has anyone ever said that you have a case of the Mondays? He's like, no, hell no, man. You get your ass kicked saying something like that, man.
God, I love old 2000s comedy movies. They're honestly my guilty pleasure movie.
Office Space hits me like right where I wish everything in this planet would hit me.
Right.
Just like that dry, but like, so good.
So good. So good. So good. Anyways, serial killers. Yes, there's a lot about serial killers. It's hard to say because the thing is, it's like, I've read a lot about, like what it means to be not what it means to be a serial killer. Obviously, I know what that's easy information. But like signs that you're a serial killer. Like what are for like characteristics of serial killers. The thing that makes it hard though is there's so many outliers. You know. So it makes it really hard to understand what it is to categorize serial killers in a certain way, only because there's a little bit different. Like, I'll go over this list real quick of 14 characteristics about serial killers, and so then that way we can kind of see from there what that means. But, like, it kind of, because I was reading some of them, and I was just like, there's some outliers that, we've done a lot of serial killers so far on our podcast, and a lot of it just doesn't add up.
Right.
The first one does, the 90% of serial killers are male. That is kind of something we've done. I think we've only done one female serial killer. Yeah, one female serial killer and then one that we don't really count, but is labeled one for publicity reasons. Exactly. This one's pretty true. They tend to be intelligent with high IQs in a bright normal range, which just means a little bit above average, just a really good IQ. This one I had conflictings because we've done so many serial killers where this one doesn't hold true, and that is they do poorly in school and have trouble holding down jobs and often work as unskilled laborers. We've met a lot of men that are not that at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some that bounce around from jobs, but I don't think that they necessarily can't hold them down for whatever reason.
Yeah, like that one was one, because I mean, like, Dahmer never really was able to hold down a job. That's because of alcoholism. Yeah. But he was still a good student and stuff.
Yeah, they never, like, talked bad about his records. And I do want to say, so we are live here on Twitch for those of you who watch us on the back end, and hi to you guys. So sometimes we have an audience. We had a question, hey, what's the goal of this podcast? So we just cover true crime. And true crime related things, from serial killers to cults to psychology.
Psychology. Because I love psychology and I think it's very interesting. This one was kind of rang true. They tend to come from markedly unstable families.
Yes, I mean, I think that's probably...
That's a number one. And also, I'll get more into that a little bit later, but that is one of the FBI profilings they use on serial killers. So that's one characteristic that does kind of hold true. As children, they are abandoned by their fathers and raised by domineering mothers. There's only one, and that's the big family giant I think of when I think of abandoning fathers and domineering mothers.
Well, didn't that happen with Gacy too? Or he kind of left the father, because didn't he leave and then his father had remarried? Who was it that remarried and then named one of the kids the same thing?
That was the Golden State Killer.
That was the Golden State
Killer. D'Angelo.
Just fucked.
Yeah, he basically, because he left the family and then had a son and a daughter, basically, and then renamed. Yeah, that one was my. So that one's kind of happy. I feel like that one.
How fucked would that be if you left and then you came back and now your dad has a kid and they're like, "Hey, Holly, this is Holly.
This is also Holly." I would be like, "The fuck? Couldn't come up with any other names?"
If that was me, that other Holly's getting just chest kicked.
They're going to be one Holly.
Yeah, there's going to be one Holly.
They hate their fathers and mothers. That's a
in generalization, but probably true, yeah.
Yeah, their families often have criminal, psychiatric, and alcohol histories. That one's a kind of a hit or miss as well, because that is true. Like, Dahmer was one of them. I think D'Angelo was one of them.
Because Dahmer was primarily raised by his grandparents, though, right?
Dahmer was raised by his parents, but his mom had a very bad mental health issue and had alcohol problems. That's why his mom and dad got divorced.
Right.
His dad left.
His dad was criminal, in and out of jail, right?
No, his dad was actually a scientist, and that's where Dahmer learned all of his stuff. Where I think you're thinking of...
They're all starting to blur together.
Yeah, I think you're thinking of Eileen Wuornos.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
Because she her dad was in and out of jail, but then ended up killing himself in jail. And then, Richard Ramirez, his parents weren't really the issue, but his uncle was, or his cousin.
His direct influencer was awful.
Was awful. They're commonly abused as children, psychologically, physically, sexually, and often by a family member. That one is kind of reigning more true.
No.
Many serial killers spend time in institution as children and have records early with psychiatric problems. We haven't done a lot where that was a thing, but also we've been doing kind of older serial killers where people didn't care about kids.
The only one that ranged true with is Kemper, where he killed his grandparents.
And he was in an institution.
But then proved that he's fine.
Yeah, and he was actually helping run the institution by the time he was leaving. He was actually giving tests to other patients, which has to break so many codes of conduct.
I do wonder, though, and I don't know if this is something that anyone's covered, but if you go through trauma, whether it's abuse or sexual abuse at a young age, I feel like you're pretty much forced to mature.
Yeah.
Right? You have to adapt. You're forced to adapt and become a more mature child or teen or whatever that looks like. So I wonder if that's also why we see a trajectory for a lot of these individuals of being hyper intelligent.
That would make a lot of sense, to be honest. I think Gacy was assaulted as a kid. So was D'Angelo wasn't, but his sister was, and he saw his sister happen.
Yeah, and that's lots of trauma.
That's even just as much, especially as the older brother not being able to protect your younger sister.
Yeah.
And it was also from army people, so it's they weren't believed.
And Kemper was the one that did the weird games, but his mom hated him because
he also had weird sadistic games, mostly in the sense of he would roll up his sister in the thing and she couldn't get out, and he was just ha, funny, and left.
Yeah.
And he was just I don't know, just but because I think Dahmer wasn't touched as a kid, Bundy wasn't, but there's been multiple, I think Eileen was, Gacy was,
or we see Mary Bell, but
that's a whole other story.
Yeah, that's a unique one that's kind of a bummer.
But the next one also too kind of goes along the lines of even if they weren't abused sexually as a kid, but they were they had interest or like found like fetish, sadistic porn or like cop magazines. Because that's when we noticed in a lot of killers is like because like Bundy in particular like loved reading those. What do they call it?
Was it Penthouse or
not Penthouse? He had those crime magazines where like
where
beautifulized, brutalized women were on it, and he liked them. The only one the next one was high rates of suicide attempts. I don't
know if we covered anything like that.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if we covered any killers where they try to kill themselves.
Or if they did, it's not part of the
mainstream
information.
No. And it's something that's not really been talked about. More than 60% of serial killers wet their beds beyond the age of 12. That's another one where I'm like, I have no idea.
It's such an interesting statistic.
Yeah, that one I'm like, I don't even know, to be honest.
Because bedwetting is an interesting... I don't know, that's a weird one, because like, there's individuals that wet their bed because of like special needs, but there's also individuals who like legitimately just can't control it. So I wonder why that would be linked to...
I mean, my cousin, like, I don't think it was until the age of 12, I think it was way before that, but they basically had to have an alarm. Like, he had like a little like iPod Touch, and they had an alarm on it, so at 3 a.m. every morning or every night it would ring. He'd wake up, go to the bathroom, and go back to bed. It's just because he would just sleep through it. He just never... he just couldn't wake up. But the thing is, my cousin's not a serial killer that we know of.
Next thing you know, dun dun dun.
I can't see it. But many serial killers are fascinated with fire starting.
That makes sense.
That one I could see because like
it's that power and like something control. About like control.
Like
and
you can I
can see it. Flames or like they kind of like symbolize a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty solid one, to be honest. Like I could see that one. The last one I have, these are just like quick ones. I didn't really like do a lot of in-depth on characteristics, mostly because there's just so many that we could have done, and I just didn't like, I don't know, I couldn't figure it out to get like a full proof. That didn't also kind of go with what the FBI profiling I found. That was a little bit more of like, I liked that because it was kind of more foolproof and like grander.
Right.
But and the last one I have is they're involved with sadistic activities or torturing small animals. But I think that one is the most like known, common one everyone talks about. Yeah, it's a very
mainstream. Like if you're killing small animals at a young age,
yeah,
it's bad.
It's bad. And so that one I know is just like the common everyone thinks about when they think of serial killers.
What's strange though is like, I think I've brought this up before, is like people who take kids hunting at a young age or fishing, for example, like they don't have that problem.
Yeah, and I think it's because they learn like a respect of animals, and they respect of the kill, that it's for nurturing, right, not for pleasure. Right. Or it's for nutrients and an activity, not really as much for like pleasure. And I think that's also too like I think that's like also different because small animals, like household pets kind of animals, is the difference, or like helpless little ones that are just kind of not so much like, because like I don't see a kid going out and just chasing a deer around.
I just think it's strange too that it's like, they do it for control, and they do it because they're taking life away from something that's living. But like, do they? And obviously, this isn't a question we can answer. But like,
yeah,
do they realize that, or are they doing it because like it makes sense to them? Are they doing it because like they just want to see how it feels, or are they doing it because just out of like, oh, that's something that I can kill?
Yeah.
They just can't control it.
Right. I don't know. Thanks the Dutch for the follow.
Hey.
But that's just kind of like the quick little tidbits that I found that I was just kind of like, like I guess I kind of see them, but like the thing is, I felt like every single one, because we just talked through those all, that they were really contradictory to a lot of people because it seemed like those were some good aspects, but it almost like every single characteristic went to a particular one we already did. So it wasn't like even all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't one characteristic that every single one of them we knew did those things.
Yeah, and I definitely think that it's... I'm sure it helps the FBI and stuff to have characteristics because, like, you know, if this person hits on 3 or 4 of these, we should probably look into it deeper.
Yeah.
So I imagine, like, a lot of the big heavy hitters may hit on, like, 1 or 2, maybe even 3.
Yeah.
But being able to hit on all of them would be... That'd be bad.
That'd be like the most textbook case closed kind of serial killer I feel like they would have.
I still to this day think the strangest one for me of the big ones is Richard Ramirez. Because it's so interesting that he was like... I know that, like... I know how easy it can be to influence someone younger than you if they look up to you in any sort of way, whether that's cool or like family or like, you know, anything like that. Like it's an easy thing. That's why there's lots of laws and regulations on certain things.
Yeah.
But to think that one family member and some magazines made him turn into literally like one of the most prolific serial killers of our time. Yeah. Like, is just baffling to me.
Yeah. It's a weird one. It's one of those, like...
And I get that it didn't start with murder, and that it was like this build up to like petty crimes, to bigger crimes, to then murder. But like...
Yeah, because the thing is also, too, with Ramirez, because he had his cousin that was kind of doing more of the crimes, but he also had the brother-in-law that was teaching him the peeping Tom. Yeah. That's the crazy part, is that it's like, he almost had, like, multiple influences as well. Mm-hmm. But it's just, I think also, too, because Ramirez started doing, like, hard drugs at, like, 14.
Right, drugs.
I think that's partially what did it for him, was the hard drugs, kind of, because, like, because, I mean, it is known, if you do any substance before the age of 21, you're more likely to like be susceptible to it. Like
it could really damage you.
Yeah, so especially at 14 where your brain still has 10 more years.
Well, and mentally, I'm not saying that either of us have any experience with psychedelics, but to imagine being like put 14-year-old me and like give him like acid or mushrooms or something like that. Like that would be devastating.
It would be detrimental. I don't even think I could fully function. I don't even know if I would. That's a weird one.
I think that would completely and utterly change your whole entire life trajectory, because you would not be able to deal with just the understanding aspect.
Yeah, because the thing is, I feel like with psychedelics, it puts you in a different mindset. And I feel like at such a young age, it's like, you only know one mindset, the idea of being so altered would really change. Well, and then also having your cousin who just got out of war.
Showing you all this fuck shit.
And then you have your brother-in-law who you're living with being like, hey, you want to go on an activity with me? Let's go peeping through people's windows. Yeah. You know, I think they kind of have like those both little... quirks that just kind of piled onto the man. But
that's another interesting thing about some of because maybe we need to cover at some point, try and find a serial killer that's happening now. There's like maybe a case, but a lot of serial killers we've talked about do revolve around some sort of sex act. Yeah. And I wonder if there's a statistic to show if serial killers who are based off of like sex crimes are lowering because of the internet, meaning that there's more, and I don't know if this is a yes or no, I have no idea, but you know, we talked about with like Dahmer, if he was alive now, would he have been able to find outlets for these sexual things he would want to do, because there's more. You know, you could go on FetLife and find people who want to do, you know, very, very far end wild things.
Yeah. especially because like he was definitely more of a definite dom than anything else. I feel like I don't know, because the thing is, like, I like to think back, because like I know like with like Bundy, probably not, maybe Gacy if he was born during this time, and like being gay wasn't so hard hitted on him, and he like could have gotten the help that he could have at such a young age. Because the thing is, I feel like Gacy could have gotten better if he had like if he knew it was okay to be gay kind of attitude. Maybe he wouldn't have gone down that road, because he wouldn't have
laid in that casket.
Laid with that body in the morgue. That guy's crazy.
I feel like that was half like a weird like sexual thing, and half like a I wish my dad would hug me thing.
Oh yeah,
you know,
that definitely had a daddy issues. I feel like one of the characteristics should be like, has mommy or daddy issues. I guess one of them was, if you did
dad,
They guess they kind of did cover like if you had daddy or mommy issues as a characteristic, but in a nice, polite way. But like, yeah, because I mean with Gacy, if he just, because that was kind of his pivotal moment, was when he laid with the dead body, the guy, and then basically they like caught him, and he was like, I'm gonna run off again.
I am really fascinated too with the fact that what's the number, 80% or 90% are all men?
Yeah, 90% are all men.
Which is just fundamentally very fascinating, being a man and thinking that, you know, my gender is the one that is responsible for, you know, the vast majority of serial killers.
Yeah.
I just wonder if it's like, I know that there's a thing with men, and it's getting better as time goes on.
Yeah.
Right, where like, if you weren't strong, powerful, influential, you know, name whatever other verb or adjective you want, you were looked at by other men as just like weak.
Yeah.
So I think that if that, like, with the wrong mindset already, and that added on top of it, I feel like that's probably why a lot of people do turn to some awful shit.
I can definitely see it, and like that's the thing is, like, I think I was talking to one of my exes about it, because like the whole hate all men movement, or like not all men movement, but there's like, this thing is that there's like very good arguments on both sides, and the thing is, it's like it's just one of those like still political arguments where it's like, as a woman, I understand why men kind of are the way they are, because they are like expected in society to be the way they are, but it's what those men do to better themselves is the issue, is what we want to what the conversation should be. I think that's just kind of goes back to just nowadays it's hard to talk about anything political or gender, race, or anything like that, because you have people on both sides that scream at each other, and there's no middle people being like, hey, I understand that this is the way it is, but I'm doing better.
And I think that anytime there's a movement that is trying to say all is problematic, just because when you say all, whether it's race, religion, ethnicity, it's very offensive to the ones that don't fit the all.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where a lot of the arguing begins. Is like, well, I don't fit in that.
Yeah.
Like, why is there a movement that hates all men when I'm like, why do you hate me?
Yeah.
You know, I think that that's problematic, but I think that there definitely has to be reflections of how we're raising our children and educating our children on the male side of things. You know, the whole boys being boys can't be tolerated anymore. Yeah,
and I think that's, because I watched like a really good TikTok that put in perspective of like the not all men is just like, not all men, but catch your homies, call out your homies, tell your homies, hey man, that's not cool, and then that will cause there not to be a not all men kind of hate, because that's the thing is, or like a hating men kind of attitude, because the thing is, if you just call your homies out for being inappropriate or bad, because I think the only reason why I feel like it's really good to call out your homies when you're not being, like, even with girls too, the girls push the line too, and I think that's why you should call out both sides. Check your homies, just be decent human beings. But my favorite comedian, Daniel Sloth, he puts it in perspective really well, because he's like, I had a friend who I saw was doing these things, and I knew it wasn't right. I just never called him out on it until it happened to my best friend, who was a girl. And then that's when I realized I should have called out my homie sooner, and then I could have maybe protected my friend.
Yeah.
And that's just like where the disconnect comes in. It's just honestly just having a conversation with your friends.
It's super important to have conversations with your friends, and it's super important to not feel like, and this goes back to another guy thing, and I'm sure it happens to women as well, but there's this large thing where you're like, oh, I don't want to be the one who's like ruining the vibe, or like, the buzzkill or anything like that. But the reality is, if your friends are doing some fuck shit, like, A, they probably shouldn't be your friends depending on what level of fuck shit they're doing.
Yeah.
And B, like, if they don't want to take your advice and they are just going to continue to do these things, whatever it might be, like, you really need to reflect who you are, because you are, it's statistically proven, you are who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, and that's 100% fair or good thing to call your friends out on. And I think it's just start of a conversation, and I think people just get a little too defensive.
And I think the one thing that bothers me when it comes to any, like, other things like that, too, is I just have that mentality of, like, let's say, what's a good thing here? Let's say I have 10 encounters with 10 white men, and all of them are, let's say 80% of them are shitty.
Yeah.
Do I say now that I hate all of them? Mm-hmm. Or do I say Jim, Tom, Bob, Brett, whatever the names are shitty people? Yeah. That's the thing, and it's tough. And I really do think that it comes back to the same thing that it's always came back to. Parents, education, who you surround yourself with.
Yeah. And I think that's like
you surround yourself with a bunch of people who enable your bad behaviors. Of course you don't think it's a problem.
Yeah. And so, because I mean, that's also, circle back to serial killers, that's what happened to Dahmer when he was in high school, is if you ever watch or read the comic My Friend Dahmer, it puts it in really big perspective, is because Dahmer basically only had these group of boys as friends because he would act out of character and act out like he would present himself and act stupid just so that he could get a laugh out of these guys. But they never were like, hey man, you drink consistently even at school. No. Maybe you should stop, because they didn't want to actually be his friend. They just wanted a good joke out of Dahmer. So it's like, if Dahmer had that kind of, maybe that support. I think if Dahmer also had just like love. Yeah. Because the thing is, you can really see that like after his brother was born, his mom just shut down. His dad was always at work. He was kind of left to his own devices. And then maybe also too, if he had his outlet for his dark fantasies, because there are people in the BDSM community that probably would have been down and out with the cool kids, but I think his just never got explored. And then once it was explored, because his first encounter was killing somebody on accident. He didn't even realize he did it until he woke up in the next morning, and then he was just like, well, this is what I'm going to do from now on. Yeah. And
then it just got dark and dark and dark and dark.
Dark and dark and darker.
I kind of think at some point, though, because he talked about planning to kill.
That's the thing, because as like a kid, he because he planned on killing that, what was it, that was his second kill that I was talking about. His first kill was with the hitchhiker. The hitchhiker happened how it happened, but then his second kill after the hitchhiker, because that was like 6 or 7 years after. Right. After he got dishonored.
The hitchhiker, he said that he didn't want him to leave or whatever.
He just didn't want to be left alone. Yeah. Which, if he had enough support. Anyways.
That's the thing is, right? Parents and education.
Parents and education. That's where it all starts off with.
When do we stop letting dumb people have kids? Hot take.
I
know it's not a reality we live in, but...
No. Unfortunately. But with those characteristics, really interesting is then the FBI profiling kind of has some of those characteristics. Not a lot of them were on there, but the number one was abuse as a child, and then internalizing trauma. So never working through your trauma is like two of the big things that the FBI looks for. One officer, I really liked how he put it, because it kind of puts perspective on serial killers. I kind of want to get your opinion on it. So he's quoted saying, talking about what creates a serial killer and like kind of gives an analogy of a gun. So genetics loads the gun, personality and psychology aims it, and your experiences pull the trigger.
I think that's spot on.
I think that's spot on because I think it goes back to the argument nature versus nurture. Yeah. I think some cases it's in somewhat of their nature. Like, I mean, Dahmer is a good example of, like, I think it was in his nature somewhat, but if he had the nurture is where it could have been maybe controlled and taken care of.
Yeah, I think that some people are born with chemical imbalances and wirings that are just off. And if they aren't properly taken care of, which, you know, back in the day, we didn't even know these things existed.
No.
You know, it would have been pretty much impossible. But nowadays, how many people have we been able to help that probably would have been potential serial killers? Tons. Because we're noticing it now. And I think, too, that, I don't know, to go back to, like, getting over the trauma, I think that's another big thing and why a lot of it is men who are serial killers, because for still even till this day, there's a lot of people who say, like, man up, you can't show your emotions, you have to be strong, you have to, you know, you have to suffer, you have to deal with it. Like, the reality is like, yeah, there's things that maybe you need to deal with yourself.
Yeah.
But asking for help and saying you're not okay are perfectly fine things to do, and it doesn't make you weaker. Actually, in my eyes and a lot of people's eyes, it makes you stronger to be able to come out and say, like, hey, I'm not okay. I need help.
Yeah. And I think that's like a really experience, because that's why I like your experiences pull the trigger, because I think there's always a catalyst and a turning point to every serial killer as to why they start doing what they do. And I think we can go back to every single serial killer we've done. Could take another hour, but and point out each of their trigger, because that's like one of my favorite things when we do a serial killer is like what was the turning point?
What was the turning point?
And I think you can kind of pinpoint every single one. There's been a few where there's been like, it could have been this, but it could have also been this, but it also could have been this.
Ed's is really weird.
Ed Kempern's a definite...
if he didn't kill at a young age, the young age one confuses me more than the older ones.
Yeah. Because he killed his grandma and then he killed his grandpa out of like a mercy of not
being able to live with his wife.
Yeah, not being so like it's such a weird thing because like I don't know, because Kempern was a little bit of a weird one because his dad left at an early age and so he's left with his mom, but his dad still had somewhat contact with him. It just didn't turn out because obviously he had then already had tendencies and was going a little bit to the dark side, because that's why he then went to his grandparents. Because his stepmom was like, he's fucking weird, he needs to go.
Yeah, basically, straight up.
Because he was a little bit inappropriate with his stepmom. Just a little bit too weird for a 15-year boy.
That's one of the most popular categories on the hub.
I know. See, maybe if Kempern had a Pornhub, he could have been like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, anyways.
Can we talk about the strange psychology of that? Just, we don't have to talk deep on it.
Yeah.
Why is it a joke meme that, like, stepsister and stepmom, we'll just say hub stuff, is really, like, relevant?
Like, why is that such a big thing? Because I always make jokes about it. Like, what are you doing, step bro?
Yeah.
I always do that. Like, whenever I'm changing laundry, I always think about it. But obviously, I don't have a step-sibling, and never would I want to have sex with one of my step-siblings.
I just don't understand where it sprouted from. Like, I get now, like, you know, if you're someone who gets on the hub, you know, bless your heart, but not saying I do, but, you know,
not saying I
don't,
but,
you know, at this point in time, it's such a popular category that all of the people who are sought after do it. But what made it get to that point? Because there was a fan base that was created from it. Was it memes, or is there like this weird like?
Yeah, is it some like Alabama coming in hot?
Because that's like that's straight up taboo shit.
Yeah.
But it's like people like it.
Yeah, and now it's like becoming even more and more on the watch list. I don't know what it is, because the thing is, it's like I've had step siblings, never would have thought that. Or like a stepdad, never would have thought of that. Yeah. I don't know. I think it is just like a taboo, like a...
My question then is there are a lot of people who do and just don't admit it, and that's why it made it so popular. Because, like, I would have... being an only child and not ever having any step things, like, I just never got it. I actually thought it was funny, and I'm like, oh, this is hilarious.
It's a good meme.
But, like, is it, like, something that a lot of people fantasize about, and then just obviously because of, like, moral... like how we look at morality, that's just something you don't cross the line.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know on that one, to be honest. That's a weird...
it's a strange phenomenon.
It's a strange one that it just seems like now it's like the only thing people watch. Like, not the only thing people watch, but it just seemed like it was just like one or two videos and then people made memes on it. It's almost like, you know, when you joke about a fetish enough, you get the fetish.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen that's been like a trend on TikTok, where like it's like always with the audio of like, I was joking about liking feet, but I don't know if it's a joke anymore.
TikTok needs to be looked at for shit like that.
Yeah.
Because I never thought about spit until I watched TikTok, and I'm like, that doesn't look like the worst thing in the world.
Legitimately,
you know, I was like, that doesn't look like the worst thing in the world.
Like, whenever, now I see, because I'm definitely on anime TikTok, I see somebody who like, I never let a man spin my mouth, spin in my mouth, spin in my mouth, and then it has like the song, and then it goes to like a DILF fucking from some anime, and I'm just like, I get it.
Yeah, I saw one where this girl was like, ew, no, I would never let a guy spit on me. And then it panned to Kakashi, and then she's on the ground with her mouth open. I'm like, God damn it.
You're like, I agree with you, but like I didn't want to think about it like that, but like it's like I think it's just like I think if you joke about it enough, you just develop it. Because the thing is, it's like I'm never going to be, but I joke about it enough about being a furry.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, but I'm not a furry. But then I'm like, what if one day I wake up and I'm like, no, I am.
10 years later, I'm gonna be walking the streets and I'm just gonna see Holly like half suit on. I'm like, Holly.
I'll be just walking down the street with my fursuit, and then I just like look around, take off the thing, and then you drive by and you're like, what is happening? And I'm like, my secrets.
I fucking knew it.
But so that's what I wonder if it like kind of comes down to like it was done as a joke, and then people were like, oh no, I can get into this. I think it's probably something like that. I don't know.
I watched All Gas No Brakes, which R.I.P. to a legend. I can't believe that they took his channel away. But when he went to the FurryCon thing, it was very fascinating because like the people who are about it are 100% about it.
Yeah.
And like it's like I don't know. I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to badmouth people, but like put like the wrong opinions out there, but like it was definitely like half the people were ready just to role play. The other half like, oh, we're fucking.
Oh, we're fucking.
I'm here to fuck.
I'm here to find my wolf queen.
Yeah, my wolf queen.
My beta to my alpha.
Yeah, my beta to my alpha.
You know that has to be a thing.
Oh, for sure.
That's definitely. It's a con. I mean, people sleep at the Comic-Con.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
you're role playing.
Yeah.
Role playing is a big thing. So I don't know if maybe like that's where also like the step sibling thing comes from. It's just like role play.
Yeah.
People are into role play, so I mean like maybe
that makes sense because like there's the idea of role playing certain scenarios out like. I guess can be hot in their own sense.
Yeah, so I wonder if that's what it comes from. It's so weird. It's like, why is this so prevalent?
No.
But I love
like half of it's memes. Memes, like, we really need to, like, talk about the fact that memes control everything now.
Memes do. Memes make a situation go from not a bad, like, a serious situation to a fucking hilarious situation.
Did you see how much Twisted Tea made? Like, after from that guy who blew that Twisted Tea off in the dude's head.
Yeah.
And then everyone made like Twisted Tea weaponized memes and stuff.
Yeah.
Dude, they made I don't want to quote the number, but it was like close to doubling their revenue.
I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised because I remember because every time like something prevalent like that happens, I see on Facebook especially the ungodly amount of memes. Yeah. And that's how also I keep up with my meme games. I just go on Facebook once a day just to see if there's anything like trending that I should go look up and see where the origins are at.
Think of White Claw. White Claw was 100% in no one's wheelhouse until memes.
Yeah, until memes, and then it was like, then it became like the white girl drink, and then everyone's like, no, they're fucking delicious.
Yeah, until people were like they saw the memes enough, and then they probably saw it and started like, fuck it, I'll try it. And then like people are like, oh wow, I actually really like this.
Yeah.
And now White Claw is a popular beverage that people will just go buy.
It is. It's everywhere. You can buy it at a bar now.
Yeah.
It's crazy, the power of memes.
Yeah, the psychology of memes.
That is honestly would not be surprised if that became like a thing, the psychology of memes.
It's in the business world.
It makes sense because it's a huge marketing.
Yeah. Look at KFC and Wendy's and some of the other big Twitter accounts that just shitpost.
Yeah, I love it. Like when they like comment back and it's just like they're just bashing on people and it's like hilarious. Respect.
I'm a memer. I'm 100% more willing to go to KFC because they shit on people. I think it's hilarious. I'll support that. Your chicken's aight, but you're funny as fuck.
Yeah, and it's also like you're not doing it in a mean way. You're just bashing people who are just trying to cause a problem.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's not malicious or like racist or anything or sexist.
No, they're just fucking memeing.
They're just memeing hard.
They're dabbing on the haters.
Fucking amazing. But anyways, serial killers. I found really interesting, so I watched this video on this FBI agent who basically what they do when they do a crime scene to see if it's related to a serial killer or just kind of how they take care of crime scenes is really interesting to me. I never really thought about like when they go to a crime scene, what do they look for? Do you want to know what it is? It's the 5 key things. First is victimology.
Okay.
Victimology is when you look at the history of the victim. So I'll basically go over what this guy went over in his own interview, just kind of to give you examples. So basically what happened was this guy got murdered, or this couple got murdered. She was 9 months pregnant. The guy got shot once. The woman was shot 8 times. They looked at the victimology in the sense of they noticed in the house that they had drugs, guns, and an excessive amount of money. So they obviously seemed like people who were in the drug ring.
Okay.
Interesting. But when they noticed at the crime scene, none of that was taken. So that kind of then goes into a little bit later into the organizational level, but that none of their things were taken. So that shows that this wasn't a targeted crime, a drug crime.
Robbery,
it wasn't a drug-related crime. So then it goes into a different aspect of like, okay, so why was this happening? And with that, then it goes to then location. So where were they shot? Why was this location? Why was this place targeted? So they look at the victims, their history, see if they have any reasonable cause for a killing, and then they go to the location. Is this location prominent with crime? Has there been other crimes there? Why this place? And then obviously they then look at the crime scene. So obviously they noticed that the money wasn't taken. It was just a normal house in a suburban area. They didn't take any of the money or the drugs, so obviously wasn't crime related. Wasn't a crime of passion, and then they go on to the next list. And then obviously then they go to organizational level, which I'll get into all the different types of serial killers, because organization level really plays in effect of the type of serial killer there are, because there's 4 main ones, but there's also like 3 that they actually look at, like 3. So kind of how I think about it is like a pyramid. So there's 3 in the top, and then from those 3 they go to the 4, and then from those 4 they have like little subcategories that kind of connect to those 4.
Okay.
So the types of serial killers are really interesting because there's really like, we can go like one particular type, but then there's also like subtypes, and then there's also broad types. And then they go to pre and post behavior, which I thought was a really interesting thing. So when they have all their information and they kind of know who they're looking for, they have the profile of the guy, they then go and look at people who they suspect, and they look at their pre and past behavior, which just means how are they acting before a killing, and then how do they act afterwards, because they notice a lot when people kill, they then act way different. They either are a little bit more jumpy, they'll move out of nowhere, they'll start moving money around in a weird way where it's like, why are they cashing out when they don't have any reason to, or they quitting, like, they then look at behaviorals of suspects to see if there's anything that might correlate into, that seems like they're about to run, or that looks suspicious, because that wasn't how they acted before. And I think you can also look at Mark Hoffman.
Yeah.
Kind of the before and after. That's a good example of like how like after a killing, especially because I feel like a lot of the serial killers, that we covered, some of them would act different somewhat afterwards, but some of them would just play it off like nothing. Like Gacy especially would just go about his day. Then next
didn't
day,
he move the first? Oh, he moved after he got caught.
He got moved, but he didn't kill anybody yet.
Yeah,
because
he was just doing.
He just was diddling kids. Yeah. And then he went to jail, served his time, got out in good behavior. And Gacy's.
Well, that whole thing is frustrating because the people who fucked up was the ones who were keeping track of records.
Yeah, the people who were fucking up were the people who were actually investigating Gacy.
Yeah.
Because they never investigated his past.
Or whoever just didn't transfer the right shit.
To the right people. And so they never even... Anyways, they would have found him so much faster.
His ass should have just been in prison from, like, that first, like, time.
Yeah, that first time when he got caught with kids. But, so that's kind of what the 5 categorizing of trying to find a killer or serial killer. So that's really interesting. And that kind of leads to the 4 different types of serial killers. So we have first, hedonistic, hedonistic, hedonistic killer. Yeah, let me just do this real quick.
I'm gonna turn some light on you. So it's a little...
Hedonistic.
Yeah, hedonistic.
Hedonistic killer. Anyways, hedonistic killer, and what that means is they commit his acts or their. Okay, I shouldn't say his. They commits their acts for their own personal pleasure. For example, rape, torture, money. Normally with these kind of killers, they have very close contact. They never really use a gun, and it's more of like a fantasized kind of killing. With those, that's where a lot of the subcategories come from. So an example, just to put in perspective what kind of killer that is, think of a Dahmer or Gacy, because that's fantasize, rape, torture, gaining something from
BTK,
it for pleasure. Yeah, for pleasure. And with that, you have less killers, and that's mostly for sexual gratification, thinks about it for years, and then acts upon it. So that would be a definite Gacy Dahmer right there. A thrill killer is really interesting, and they get a thrill from murdering people. So like example, hunting their victims and seeing their terror may give them an adrenaline rush. So that would be a good BTK or the Golden State Killer. Yeah. Because they're more for the thrill of it. Because the Golden State Killer was just doing it because he can. Right. So that was more of like a thrill. Another one is a comfort killer, is someone who kills for money or material gains. So this one's a little bit more, we haven't covered a lot of people like this. No. This one, think of more of like killing your spouse.
That might be more of the lady that we covered.
Eileen, I always say Eileen Warner.
But because her thing, like, she was killing, but, like, stealing all that shit.
She was getting it for money. She wasn't really killing for pleasure. She was killing more for money in end goal. Yeah. Just to get it, like,
she might have been killing for all of it, to be honest.
She was a little bit of a wild card because we can't really get an example. Yeah. But this one, I think of comfort killer as the classic killing your spouse for the insurance. Yeah. So that's kind of what a comfort killer is killing.
Kind of on our Valentine's Day, I think we covered one. We covered one or two that was
we covered quite a bit of those on the Valentine's Day episode. But comfort killer is just someone more for money, and they might kill a sibling just for the sake of insurance. Mm-hmm. So they're basically just killing, not really for the thrill of killing, but the want of.
Oh, that's fucking the old dude we covered, who had the whole building that.
Oh, H.H. Holmes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was doing it for money. I think he was doing it for a lot of things.
I think he was doing it for pleasure. I think he was more of a thrill comfort killer. Yeah. He was kind of a combination. But he was because he, like...
He would repurpose everything.
Yeah, he would repurpose
He's a real businessman.
He was a very big businessman on that insurance.
He's a scam guy.
Yeah. So that's kind of like those... Kind of goes into the hedonistic killer. So that's kind of like those kind of all go in the same because it's more for a pleasure. Or an outcome that's not straight brutal murdering. Because then we have power and control, which is fantasizing about having power and seeks to dominate and control his victims. So these ones kind of see control, domination. They're more calm, meticulous, patient, and they normally keep souvenirs, and they would be also categorized as organized serial killers.
I think that's a lot of the big ones, though, too.
That's a lot of the big ones, because I feel like, because power and control, I think, like, maybe Gacy was more of, like, into the lust, but also more into the power control, because he loved playing that game of trying to get out of handcuffs.
Yeah.
It was a very big power move. BTK was definitely also really big.
And same with Dahmer at the end, like, he'll handcuff you, and, you know, that's how he kind of went about killing in the later murders.
Because I think, like, Dahmer definitely had more of, like, the fantasy, getting it from men. But I think the little bit characteristics of, like, power and control that makes it a little bit different is that they're more just trying to do dominance. Like, think of Bundy.
Yeah.
Because Bundy, he was, like, he would, like, rape and torture his victims, but he was doing it more out of the control, not so much as the fantasy of it.
Right.
I think that's where the difference, because I think that's where Gacy kind of borders the line of both of them, because basically Gacy had the fantasy, but he loved having the power over people. And I think Bundy is definitely the biggest power control guy.
I think probably put BTK there too, right? Because he was like...
Yeah, because he
his whole thing was bind and torture and being controlled.
Yeah, because he didn't really... He didn't always assault his victims, either. There was some where he didn't assault them, I thought.
Because I think he always masturbated on them.
I think he masturbated on them, but it wasn't so much... It was more of like he got the control and then he found a release. It wasn't so much like he was going into it to find sexual pleasure. I think that's where, like, the difference is. There's not really a rhyme or, like, a pleasure reason. Like, there's never, like, a personal gain besides having the control.
And I think too, this is one of those ones where I honestly think that a lot of times that their purpose probably changes after every kill.
Yeah, and also
which makes it probably more difficult to.
Yeah, because I think that's because power and control, like a serial rapist wouldn't be power control. It would be more of the hedonistic, because it's more because the reason why a lot of serial rapists keep doing it is because they never find the full pleasure, so they just keep doing it till they can find that pleasure that they fantasized about.
It's like the heroine, like chasing the dragon, like it's never. Yeah. They have like the ideal situation, but it never lives out to that, so they just keep doing it. Yeah.
Another one we haven't really covered just yet. So the one I'm covering right now is more of like selective, and the thing is, it's not really used as much as from the FBI. It's a little bit more used to like pinpoint to like actually give like a kind of like a name to it, because the ones that the FBI uses are the three: the organized, the medical, and the disorganized. What I'm kind of doing is just the broad one, which I think is a little bit more interesting, because then we have mission oriented, which I don't think we've covered a killer yet, because mission oriented is kills in order to rid society of a certain group. So they're very planned, does not suffer from most like psychiatric problems. They normally kill pretty quickly and likes to avoid close contact. So they're most likely to use a gun or a knife. They're not really in it for the pleasure of killing. They're the pleasure of eradicating a group of people.
Yeah, I don't think
we've never recovered. The only thing I could think of is like maybe if we covered like the Manson cult, we could then kind of put a name on it. But even then, I don't think we've really covered, because there's never been.
I feel like we would have to cover someone that is doing it out of like some sort of racially fueled ideology.
Yeah, I do have an example. We haven't covered him, but Joseph Paul Franklin, he targeted a group of African American people, and I think ended up killing like 14 or 15. But he had a goal of killing blacks and Jews, and so that was kind of like mission oriented, because he had a goal in mind. But I don't think we've covered anyone that was like that so far.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, he would be a good one we could do, but I feel like it would be kind of a pretty close case.
Well, I'd like to do him, and then we need to do, and I forgot his name again, the big one that I sent you that we haven't covered yet.
Oh, the one that had like 300 people?
No, the one that like would build like furniture out of their skin and shit.
Oh, yeah. God,
why can I never think of it?
Is it Son of Sam's?
No, not Son of Sam's. We should probably do that one.
We're going to do that one later, because I'm going to bring them up in just a second for the fourth different type there is. But I'm trying to think of who he sent me. I know you sent me it. I always write him down so I can go back to him later.
Yeah, keep talking and I'll find it.
Yeah, so yeah, mission oriented. We haven't covered a lot of those. That one's not as prominent, but he is an organized killer because it's always certain types. But he uses guns. The last people we kind of covered normally doesn't use guns and knives. Well, they use knives, but doesn't use guns because it's not personal and it's not really what they're trying to gain from killing, I guess, is the best way I could think of, even like trying to describe it. And then the last one is visionary. Believes that a person or entity is commanding them to kill, most likely suffering from some kind of psychological disorder, most likely delusional, and believes he has a reason to kill, and also is very disorganized. They leave little to no effort to clean up their crimes. Son of Sam, David Borowski, the guy we're going to cover probably next week or the week after, he's a good example of that. And also Ramirez would be a really good example of that because there really wasn't no rhyme or reason with Ramirez because he went from old to young people. He didn't care. So
Ed Gein.
Yes, Ed Gein.
Can I just show you that?
That's insane.
That's fucked.
That
up. Makes me sick.
Yeah.
That seems like a movie prop, and that was.
It looks like something you would see in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Great movie, by the way.
Yeah, classic.
But so Ramirez would be more of those kind of visionary, mostly because Ramirez believed that Satan was, controlling him and stuff like that. So,
right.
That's where the visionary kind of comes into play, and I think that's where the Manson. I feel like visionary is a little bit more of what cult leaders kind of have, because they believe that someone's telling them to murder or kill, and so that's I don't know, because I wouldn't really. Yeah, I guess cult leaders are. They're not really serial killers in a way. They're just cult leaders. That's a whole different subject. So I won't even try to compare the two.
Cult leader psychology is just
completely different.
Yeah, that's a whole entire different thing because they have an ideology that they've come up with.
Yeah.
And one that they are able to sell, so it has to make sense, or it's very persuasive or pressuring to people actually willing to give up their lives to join it.
Yeah, so I feel like cult leaders are a little bit different, but with serial killers, that Son of Sam and Richard Ramirez would be really good examples for visionaries because they believe an outside source is telling them, or they believe that they have the right to do it.
Yeah.
So they have this God complex, but so that's the only difference. So I feel like visionary. We haven't really covered too many visionaries because I think visionaries are also very off topic, TBH.
Yeah.
But either way, so those are all the different types. The three main ones, so the disorganized, the organized, and the medical killer, are kind of what the FBI starts with, and then they can kind of go from there. So I did a little bit backwards, but
I just want to point out, think how fucking stressful this kind of work would have to be, right?
Yeah.
You're literally you're just hoping that this formula that we came up with just because of experience can give you some sort of direction.
That's why the Poughkeepsie tapes is terrifying, because it really plays into a fact of law enforcement especially try their hardest,
but they're not
sometimes you can only do so much. You just have to work.
We're vastly better than we used to be, but it's still
so difficult.
You just kind of you punch things in and hope something adds up.
Yeah.
But if you can't find evidence, which thankfully that's where they really spend all their money on trying to get better at collecting. If you can't find any, needle in a haystack.
Right.
Maybe something will pan out.
So, hoping. But, so the disorganized killer, these ones normally rarely plan out an attack. So these ones would definitely not be the ones we've mostly covered. Mostly because the people planned it out, where they found a victim, stopped them, and went from there. Or they had a plan of action on how to grab somebody to kill them. But disorganized ones, they rarely go out, and it's normally the killings are wrong place, wrong time. Like, just if you went out that night and Ramirez went into your home, you wouldn't have got. No. These ones normally strike at random. They don't ever really try to cover up their crimes. They kind of normally have lower IQs and are kind of antisocial. Rarely have friends and close family, and don't really like to stay in one place too long. They're really prone to have no recollections of their deeds or confess they were motivated by voices in their head or imaginary sources. So these ones are definitely the wild cards of serial killers. So these ones are like a little bit more rare.
Do you think you would put Golden State Killer as a wild card one? He's pretty random.
He was pretty random. I wouldn't put him as disorganized, though, because the thing is, he used every crime to better his next crime.
Well, right, and he studied criminology, so he kind of... He definitely was organized. He wasn't like a Richard Ramirez where it was like, he is the definition of wild card when it comes to this.
But I do think he was a wild card because he would just pick his victims as random. Yeah. He never really had... He kind of had a MO and like a type of person, but then he always had...
It was women, but there was also like...
Many outliers.
Men,
yeah, because he also had... Because he first went for single women, but then it was couples, and then it was fine with family, so it was mostly like couples.
No.
So he kind of was a wild card. He would just pick a victim and stalk them for a while and see if he could do it. His kind of probably haunts me the most, mostly in the sense of like how much thought he put into it is what, and like how he just used every crime to better his next technique, and just also was law enforcement. I think that's what freaks me out most about the Golden State Killer, and also without the 23andMe that we have now and the DNA, he would have gotten away with it. If you look at pictures of when he was captured, he was on the brink of it.
Let's be honest, he got away with it.
He got away with it. He was able to live a full life as a free man, and then just now when he's older, he can't.
Yeah, he's gonna be dead in the next 5 years.
Easily.
Maybe 10 if he's healthy in the jail.
Yeah.
Or prison.
But the difference between disorganized killers, and I think that's why there's not as many prominent serial killers that are disorganized, is because organized killers are definitely much more harder to find.
Yeah.
So they are hard to identify and capture because they usually are really high intelligent, well organized, to the point of just being meticulous. Every detail of the plan is planned out. They take precautions. They know when to bail. Yeah. They know when to do it. They normally never leave evidence, or incriminating evidence at least.
So I personally think that when we talk about organized serial killers, I think I would put BTK at the most organized, aside from like some people we haven't covered. Like obviously, I think Zodiac has to be the most, because we don't even have a clue.
Yeah.
But like BTK was so organized at what he did, he was able to like fuck with police.
Yeah, he was able
send in letters and shit.
Yeah. I think BTK got a little too cocky.
That was his downfall.
That was his downfall, is being cocky. Because the thing is...
His downfall was actually the fucking nerds taking over.
Yeah, the nerds being like...
encrypting his fucking floppy disk or whatever.
Hacked your floppy disk. I see you work at this church. Tell me more.
Yeah. That is some of the most like nerdy gangster shit that they were just like straight up like, oh, well, look at this. We just encrypted this little floppy disk, and oh, would you look at that? Look at these that were on here before.
IT really rode that wave of being like, yeah, we got a killer for a full year.
God, how cool. That's something we need to write down. What if we try and find who the person was that did that?
Yeah.
Who's interviewing that person? Nobody.
Yeah.
I bet he would do it.
Someone give that man the spotlight, because it's like...
We should try and find it and like see if he would do a Zoom meeting. Just be like, hey, like...
Do you want to talk about it for a little bit?
Everyone talks about BTK, but no one talks about the dude who fucking saved the day.
The hero.
Yeah.
Because,
wonder if he has the floppy disk. That'd be so great, so crazy.
That would be. I wonder. Because I know, like, I think we talked about one of our first 2 to 3 episodes, just people who are, like, obsessed with serial killer and had, like, collects memorabilia. Like, there's one gentleman that I think I talked about who used to, like, he was either the pen pal of Gacy or he was just part of the documentary. But he talks about, like, he's like he has like the cross from like I think Ramirez, and like has like personal belongings of Ed Kemper, and like has like certain like jewelry of a victim somehow. Like
I think it's fascinating in the same way that, like, World War II memorabilia is fascinating.
Yeah, like the Holocaust Museum is really fascinating.
Yeah, because it's like, it's such a dark and horrible thing, and like, but it's so fascinating that there's still things from it that represent it. Maybe World War II is not the best example, but like, there's people who will have like Nazi
memorabilia.
Yeah, like they'll have things that Nazis had, or like, items from Germany. It's like, it's so dark and gruesome, and like, it shows it's such an evil thing to have, but it's also very fascinating to be able to those
like,
things exist.
And then it still exists, yeah. Because I mean, I think last time we were talking about like my ex's mom really into Disney. I think she has one of like the original tickets that they used to give at Disney.
Yeah.
Like with the $1 it cost to get it.
Right.
Like, like how cheap it was to get to Disney. I think she has like an actual ticket from Disney back at that time. But it's just interesting to think of like how many years it's been. Like 60 plus years since Disney first opened. So, but no, I agree, because like I really want to see what is like the House of Murders, whatever that museum's called, where they have literally the exhibit where it's the Heaven's Gate, and they actually have the bunk beds from there with the actual clothes from the people and the Nike sneakers, which low key, high key, I want those Nike sneakers. They're fresh as fuck. They're fresh as fuck, but I also understand why they don't sell them anymore, because the Heaven's Gate really it's like little things like that are just like so crazy to me, that like Heaven's Gate cult made it so Nike can't sell a certain type of shoe anymore.
Yeah.
Like they made it so like that shoe was discontinued and will never go into fruition, because
it had an impact.
It had an impact because every single member was wearing those shoes when they died. Yeah. It's just like weird to me, like those little things. It's like those just little things that it's like Gacy selling paintings, and that's how he was able to buy snacks in prison.
Right.
Is because people would send him stuff, and he had a business plan of how he did it. He had 5 canvases, 1 color at a time, painted the fucking clowns, and then sent them all out. It wasn't like he was painting for pleasure. It literally was a business thing. Yeah. And so it's just interesting to actually...
Gacy was hyper intelligent.
He was hyper intelligent, and so like that's why Gacy would be considered an organized killer, because they would... Sure. Hyper intelligence.
He was processed out. Like his whole entire thing was a process, and it like worked until it didn't.
Worked until he got caught.
Oh.
So.
And he didn't get caught for a while.
33 victims had to go down first in a town.
And that's the craziest thing to me, is like, it's just, that's so many people.
So many.
It's so many people. Like, you put 33 people in this room, and you fill 33 people,
You would fill a room.
Like, this is like...
Or you can fill a crawl space.
We forgot our edgy joke.
Forgot my edgy joke. There's my edgy joke.
Got the bangers.
Bangers. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, if he just had more ammonia, he probably would have gotten away with it.
Yeah. Well, if you didn't let...
meddling kids.
Meddling kids. But yeah, so a lot of organized killers, they would plan in advance. So they would stalk their victims. Kidnapping normally was very much thought out way in advance. And also would take them to another location to commit the murder. So once that person has killed, the predator usually would take the precautions to then ensure the body won't be found in a way that'll lead back to them. So a criminal like this normally takes great pride in their work, and I think that like BTK took much pride in his work, and so like things like that, and they like would pay a lot of attention to make sure they cover up their work, and so then that way also then it wouldn't come back to them anyway. One of their motivating factors may be to stump the law enforcement who are trying to solve them. BTK to a T. So, let's give some props to our big friendly giant, Ed Kemper. He used to hang out with the policemen and get intel on whether or not they were close to finding him. And then he knew he was... The thing is, Ed Kemper knew he could have gotten away with it if he just left after he killed his mom, if he just fucked off to Colorado and got a new identity, he could have just kept going.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to.
His is so fascinating because and even when he was in prison,
you talked about it.
And he was friendly. He's a friendly human being, but he was also when we talk about awful things, the things that he did were disgusting, vile, and awful.
Yeah. But it's just like, I don't know what it is about Kemper that I just like, if I had to pick a killer that I find more, I don't want to say that I like, because it's always weird to say. Because I don't like any of them. They're murderers and bad people. But I feel like the one that always intrigues me the most is Kemper. Because,
he took himself down because he knew that he was causing issue.
He was so consciously aware is what baffles me about
he's so consciously aware, but he couldn't control the urge. It's just so... That's that's going back to it, I really think that maybe there are people who are just like...
It's in their nature.
They just can't help it. And this is a weird thought of the whole thing, but if we really look at killing someone else.
Yeah.
The least amount of killing, I believe, goes on now than ever throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
We used people would just straight up murder people daily, and it was not an issue.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it is genetic. If genetically people are just more predisposed to be okay with murder or killing or whatever it is, it just mentally isn't that big of a deal because maybe genetically somewhere along the lines it got passed down. I don't know if that's even possible, but
it's one of those where we'll never really fully know, just because I think the human psyche is just so outlandish, and also the genetics are just so open that I feel like there's just never going to be a way, because there's always going to be so many outliers too. And that's why the argument nature versus nurture is always going to be such a hard thing to argue, because no point is fully right. I think nurture has the most actual evidence, but there is still a little in your nature. And I think Kemper is one of those, it has to be somewhat in your nature. Yeah. Because the thing is, he was so cognitive of it.
I just think that if you really look at his nurture, in the grand scheme of things, it really wasn't that bad.
Well, right? I mean, being forced into a basement that you thought was literal hell, and not being able to hug your father because it was gay, and also your mom belittling you all the time, it does play a big factor. And that's also why his victims were all women of a certain type, and then the final catalyst of why he stopped was because he killed the beast himself.
He killed his mom.
Yeah. The metaphorical beast in his mind was his mom, because then he turned himself in. So I think that's why I feel like Kemper is such an interesting guy, because I can't get a read on him.
I'm sure he's talked about. I wonder what that feeling was. I wonder if it was this just release of just beyond any human could comprehend, because he's a murderer, right? And he gets off on it.
Yeah.
But he finally killed his mom, who is the person he's wanted to kill. I just wonder in his head what that
what that release was.
Yeah, what that feels like, how he would compare that to something a normal person would understand.
Yeah. It's a good question. I bet if we did even more research on him, we could understand. I still love my anagram, BFGITLSFM.
To the classic.
Classic.
If you guys don't know what that is, you need to go watch our Ed Kemper episode, because it's a fucking banger.
Yeah, that was...
No pun intended.
No pun... Yep, yeah.
He'd be banging something.
But, the last type... this one's the very rare one. So these ones are normally, it's the medical killer, and this one's normally involved with people in the medical industry, and that basically using the medical industry to carry out their doings.
Who did we cover that this was prevalent in?
I feel
maybe we didn't cover.
I don't think we talked. I don't think we covered, but I think we've talked about killers like this. There's been a few that I really want to go over. Like this one gentleman, I have him right here. Harold Shipman, also known as Dr. Death, and he is like believed to kill 218 patients in London between 1972 and 1998.
Right.
So I think I really want to cover him because that would be definitely the medical killer. Because I think, who did we talk? Did we talk about that one lady who would kill? I don't know. There's been a few different ones, but they're not very common.
I feel like maybe I'm thinking of a show. Is there an American Horror Story or something that's about a guy who would medically, like, maybe it was.
I think that we were talking. Yeah, I think it was American Horror Story, or we were talking, because there was a TV show where it's like this woman who goes and mercy kills and like believes she's doing better. We've talked about this, and I can't pinpoint the person or the show or the movie that we're thinking of, because I think we're on the same track of mind, but I can't think of the person.
But I mean, there was a recent one, and I mean recent in the last like 10 years, where someone got caught doing like malpractice and killing victims. I remember that being in the news, and it was a big deal. It wasn't Dr. Death level of, numbers, but it was a number where it was like, ooh. I mean, let's talk about the fucked up shit that happens in Bountiful. Yeah. Where we live, there was a very well-known, was he a gynecologist?
I think so. Was it at Lakeview Hospital or something?
I don't know which hospital it was at, but he was a very well-known, well-practiced individual, and come to find out, over all these years, he had been putting his patients under and doing
bad things.
So it's... I don't think that's one of those ones, too, where, like, that's another reason why a lot of people are very afraid of surgery, is, like, when you go under, you just don't know. You don't know what's happening.
And that's what, with the medical killers, is really hard. And there's not that many, because the thing is, it's what I think the mindset goes into this is if you can make the cause of death look natural enough, no one suspects anything. And normally these kind of killers can get away with about a dozen or so people before people catch on, is because of because the thing is also too, I think that's why it's hard with medical, when you hear things like that happening to people, is because you put a lot of faith and trust into your medical profession or personnel, because that's what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be like the healers of the world, like the modern day healers.
Yeah.
So it's like you kind of put a lot of trust in your doctor to, one, not harm you, not kill you, or not assault you.
Yeah.
Just because you kind of go to a doctor for a reason, and you just kind of expect that they take a code of ethics. And so that's why normally with medical killers, they're really highly intelligent and can conceal and know how to conceal it perfectly, is because they have the medical degree to understand how to do that. So it's really hard for them to get caught also, and it takes a long time for them to find out they get caught, because they know what they're doing, in a sense that a lot of other serial killers don't. But other than that, those are kind of all the different types of serial killers. Because I feel like we went over the categories. Jesus Christ, I had a stroke.
Yeah,
I was like, I kept saying it. I was like, what am I saying wrong though?
What about categories? Fun game.
Scat. But yeah, so we went over the characteristics, the types, kind of what's looked for at a crime scene. I just thought that was really cool. I've never because I've never heard of victimology until today when I watched that guy's interview. But that makes actually a lot of sense, because if you think about like Gacy's, all of his victims are all young boys. Dahmer's are all gay men. It's mostly on the African American side more than the white side. And so
he just thought he was all about. He just thought African Americans were hot as fuck.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, but he gets it. I get
it. But like, so that's I found today the interesting part of the victimology, because I never really thought about it, because also like Bundy's victims, they all looked somewhat similar, and they're all around the same age range. They all looked kind of similar to a certain mother / girlfriend that he had. And so I think victimology is really interesting and not really talked about. And I feel like we should talk about it more because that's very fascinating and kind of gives it more of a power to the victims, I feel like.
Yeah.
Kind of like being able to say, like, to categorize them and be like, this is the reason why. I don't know, it kind of gives a reason why because it's like, oh, okay.
I'm just going to stay a very large white man with a beard because this seems to not be anyone's category.
You would think until you read
yeah, there's going to be that serial killer.
That's like, I love me some bearded men with luscious beards that I can put mayonnaise into.
A mayo beard. I'm going to read an article. 30 heavy-set men murdered. Oh, fuck.
You're like, damn it.
Time to hide.
Time to hide. But I feel like, so, yeah, because I feel like, because that's why I really like, when Cass puts it in perspective, I am the ideal victim for killers because I'm small, compact. You can put me in my pocket.
Compact.
I'm female, and literally, if I was unconscious, you can definitely put my body into one of those hard suitcases that zip up.
Oh,
you
fuck.
could definitely fit me in there. You don't have to cut no bones.
I like the term compact. That's just a funny word.
I'm compact. I feel like I'm a good compact victim. But then you have like the outliers, like the Buffalo Bills, that would look for people like Cass's size because it'd be perfect for a skin suit.
Yeah, but no tattoos.
No tattoos.
She would have been now. He would have kidnapped her, and then he would have saw those tattoos and be like, blasphemy.
Blasphemy. Then again, I mean,
you don't degrade the church.
You don't degrade
or the temple.
Not the temple. Not my potential skin suit. But so that's why I feel like it's really interesting, like the victimology, because like and then you have like men who look for prostitutes. Eileen Warner, she really picked on a type of men that were looking for prostitutes.
Yep.
So like I think victimology is really interesting per se because then you can kind of pinpoint back to the victims because there was another serial killer we haven't covered and I can't think of the name, but he was like a truck stop serial killer.
Yeah.
And so he would pick up hookers from truck stops, and that's also the victimology. Then you can look, and then also then you can potentially scout out truck stops to try to find someone that'll murder.
Right.
People who pick up other women at truck stops.
I also want to cover at some point, and maybe, so not to get sidetracked, but we've talked about, maybe not this month because you're going to have some crazy work things going on, but we want to get to a point where we're doing an episode once a week, one together and one separate. I don't know if this is big enough to cover with both of us. Maybe I'll do it, but the Craigslist killer.
That sounds really familiar.
Because he pretty much would put, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there was a time period where Craigslist had personal ads. Yeah. And it was like, it was a lot of, looking for hookups. And a lot of the time it was, I was never a huge Craigslist user. Funny story. Well, never mind. That's irrelevant to this podcast. But there was like a section where it was like men looking for men, women looking for men, women looking for women, and so on and so forth. And I believe, and don't quote me on this because I've never actually researched the Craigslist killer too much, but I think he would be in those personals and would get people to come over and just fucking
eat them. Yeah.
So it's just...
Yeah. I mean, if you want to look into it and let me know. I think, because next time I think we want to do David Davinci? No, David Burkowski, Son of Sam. Yeah. Because that Netflix documentary is coming out soon and it looks flame.
I think some of the bigger ones that we should definitely have on the list is Son of Sam, Ed Gein. I want to throw another cult out there soon. Another cult because there's so many cults out there. They're just so fascinating. They are. I love researching our cult episodes because it's like you're researching not only like the ideology of this cult, but like the starter of it is like it's always whole fascinating. Thing. Like
the person that does it, because like I mean Marshall Applewhite. Apple Bottom Jeans. He always is really fascinating to me because of the fact of like the way the cult ended, and I just truly believe that if was it Nancy if she didn't die, the cult would have stayed on for much longer than it did. I genuinely believe it, just because of the way he acted after the fact she died, and it kind of just adds up to the fact that he seemed way more unstable, and it kind of seemed like Nancy was a little bit of the power wheel.
Yeah.
She was the gear that helped him turn and be able to be a leader of the cult, and then once she died, he kind of lost. He just didn't know what to do, and so he just kind of, we know what he did. But,
right. I think that we should cover some of the FLDS stuff.
That would be cool.
I mean, the one big one here, that's a hot topic for our Utah crowd, and then a hot topic for the world. I think Zodiac would be fun, but I don't know much about it.
Yeah, that one's going to be one where we could, because it's still talked about today. I think I read an article like a month ago where they're like, we might have, we had encoded it, and then we hit it.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those that's always going to be on people's minds. So it would be an interesting one. I just feel like that one would be a good one. I kind of want to like a month ahead to plan that one.
Yeah,
just
it's a lot of research.
I feel like that's a lot of research and a lot of almost a little bit more of conspiracy. I think that one would have to be a little bit more on the. We would have to disclaim it as like, we're going to go give you the facts, here's the hard truths, and now we're going to go into conspiracy. So that one would be because I think that's a good one to do conspiracies on, because I feel like that one, because since it's not solved, you definitely have the right to give a conspiracy.
Obviously Ted Cruz.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah, Ted Cruz for sure.
I think it was. I think it started with Clint Eastwood and ended with Ted Cruz.
Yeah. Exactly.
You gotta have a continuation. I don't know. I was just trying to think of someone old. Started with Betty White.
Yeah, Betty White.
Oh my God, that would
make sense.
It makes sense.
We've gone down the rabbit hole of a lot of the big ones. So I do think we need to put Manson on our list soon, just because the
thing is we
it's
want
prevalent.
It's prevalent, and he's still talked about today. I mean, 3 years ago? Never mind. I don't know if you've seen the movie, and I don't want to ruin it for you.
What movie?
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, I haven't yet.
I will not say anything more. But you should definitely watch that movie and get back to me, and then we can have a discussion about not anything about serial killers or murder in general, just about how good that movie is.
Okay.
Because the thing is, the only reason I liked it a lot, because the thing is, it's a Quentin Tarantino movie. It's a long ass movie. I did not feel like it was that long. I saw it in theaters, and when it ended, I looked at the time. I was like, Jesus Christ, that was a long movie. But it didn't feel like it was long.
That's always good when movies can do that.
And the thing is, my dad doesn't really like Quentin Tarantino. He likes some of the basics, but he doesn't like Tarantino in general, and doesn't actively go out and see his new ones. But since I wanted to see it, he went and saw it with me, and he actually liked that movie.
Tarantino definitely is one of those ones where his movies have a flair. I like pretty much everything. Not a big fan of Grinder House. Is that what it is?
I don't think I've even seen that one, yeah.
That one's a little too left field for me.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called.
I mean, my first kiss was watching Pulp Fiction.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I have a lot of first-time stories that are not that bad. The first date I ever went on, we saw Cloudy with a Chance of... That's why I feel like I am low-key just the biggest film bro, because movies have impacted my life a lot, because the first date I ever went on was with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. My first kiss was watching Pulp Fiction, and the first time I ever had sex was to Star Wars.
Which is the low-key, the most gangster shit.
The most gangster shit ever. So cool. But that's what so I feel like with, that's why movies are really prevalent, but that's why I really like, I think you would really like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I think I would too. I actively wanted to watch it, and just, it's on my list. It's on my short list, actually, of movies that I want to watch in the next little bit.
Yeah. Watch it, get back to me. I think it's really good. But do we want to go over what we got on the Psychopathy Test?
Yeah, I think that we should cover cover kind of what happened with this. The book is above me right here on the screen. So
yeah.
Our original plan was we were going to read this book.
Yeah.
And come and discuss it as a semi-book style episode / psychology episode. Mm-hmm. Well, we both found out that neither of us really could get through the book for one reason or the other. To be blunt, it just was a hard listen. it's tough to keep your attention. My problem was like it was one of those books where like I would have my headphones in and I'd be listening to it, and then like an hour goes by and I'm like, oh, I wasn't really listening to any of this.
You're like, I did not process a single thing that just was said.
Yeah, I mean there was some fascinating stuff. Like there was takeaways about like Scientology fighting the pharmaceutical companies that I had no idea existed.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I didn't gain anything about psychopath study or research. And I just don't... We didn't finish it.
No.
So the original idea...
Yeah, the original idea just went out the window. We even talked about it the last person we did, which was, I think... Who did we last do? Was it Eileen? Was that the last time we did it? No, we did the cult, Children of God.
The Children of God.
We talked about it then, and we both were like, we're going to give it one last listen. We're going to muscle through. And I don't think... Did you finish it?
No.
No, I didn't either.
No.
We literally talked about how I was like, I'm going to muscle through, and I never even pushed play again.
No.
I
tried twice. And I was just like, No offense to the author or anything like that.
You know what? The idea of it sounded phenomenal.
Right.
I just couldn't get behind it, mostly because also too, to give you a brief synopsis, it's about this journalist trying to help psychologists find the psychopath, and then his journey onto psychopaths in general. But he doesn't have any psychology knowledge because he was like a political or just like a basic ass journalist. Some sort of journalist, yeah. He was just a basic journalist who would like a crime journalist. So it was kind of also like.
I'll give it this. It's a really cool because it's real. This went on.
Yeah, it's a true story.
It's a cool ass thing to have to go like he did.
Yeah.
But as far as listening to it or trying to read it, just couldn't keep my attention. It was kind of like listening to a textbook.
It was. And I even tried to watch his TED Talk, and I only got halfway through it. The man voice lulls me to sleep.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a really good... He's a good journalist, I assume. I bet if I read the book, it might have turned out a little bit better. But he is just not vocally a good journalist. He's not a good vocal journalist. That's the issue.
No, and I think that writing was good. It's just... I feel like that's a book that is for a very specific person who wants to, hear the story.
Yeah.
And I think we both went in it thinking that it was more about, the history and how psychopaths, how we came to know what that meant.
Yeah, I was under the impression that it was a little bit more of a psychology book, not really a story book, to be honest.
Exactly.
I think that's where I lost interest really easily. And the thing is, I started it once, got an hour and a half in, realized I didn't understand anything that was going on, listened to it again. Then I kind of understood what was going on, but didn't care, to be honest. Because I was like, this isn't really what we were going for when we were talking about the psychology of serial killers. I feel like it was just a left-wing story. Like, if we were doing a book club, one thing.
Sure.
I would not have finished in a book club.
Oh, well, no, not even a little bit.
But the scores... But what we did get from it was what test did you take?
The one that you Snapchatted me.
The Levison self-report psychology scale, the test of psychopathy or psychopath.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the one I took too. So I'm glad we have the same track.
So I'll read through yours and then I'll read through mine.
Okay. So your score from primary psychopathy has been calculated as a 1.9. Primary is effective aspect of psychopathy and the reason why is because a lack of empathy for other people and tolerance for antisocial orientations, and tolerance for antisocial orientations. My secondary score was calculated at a 2. Secondary psychopathy is the antisocial aspect, and that's the rule breaking and lack of effort towards socially rewarded behavior. Now I'm not really exactly sure what that meant. I remember reading the questions and then being like,
it's not a long test.
What was it? 16 questions?
Yeah. So mine was a little bit higher than you on primary.
Yeah.
I was at 2.8.
Okay.
And I was like, I saw that and I'm like, ooh, that puts me almost right in the fucking middle.
Yeah.
But my secondary was lower. It was a 1.8.
Okay.
So. So apparently I lack more empathy than you but I also don't rule break or lack of effort towards socially rewarded behavior.
Yeah. So, and what I think, because too, the difference between like the psychopaths or sociopaths, and I think that's where like this podcast is definitely would be too long to go over kind of the difference and the examples we can give, because the thing is, you can be a psychopath and be a functioning member of society and a good person. Because one of my favorite comedians was diagnosed with psychopathy, and his therapist describes it in a really good way, and it's like, there comes a point in time in a psychopath's life where you either turn to killing or you don't. And that's where the difference lies. And I think that's also why, because he's like, oh yeah, he had the morality to know that he could never kill somebody, but if he didn't have that morality, he would have been a serial killer.
Right.
Because the thing is, he's like, oh, that makes sense why I have also a hard time having emotional relationships, is because I lack so much empathy and it's hard for me to understand.
Right.
But doesn't mean he's a bad person. It's something you just have to work on.
Yeah, empathy is a very fascinating thing. And empathy is one of those things that we're finally really starting to study heavily, and it can be drastically different person to person.
Yeah. And I think that's why, 2.8 though, for your primary. That's interesting.
Yeah. Because I definitely, and maybe this is a bad thing to say, but I feel like I'm very empathetic. But maybe that's a psychopath thing to say? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, because it's hard, because it's like, I don't want to admit that I'm a psychopath, but like...
I guess, like...
What I'm saying?
I also feel, though, I'm very desensitized to a lot of things, so, like, there's stuff that just doesn't necessarily bother me that maybe should. I don't know. But yeah, 2.8. So I'm right in the mid. But if you look at the little, like, their little graph thing, I'm almost, like, right in the middle of, like,
the graph.
Where everyone's scores are. Yeah,
because this little part says how other people have tested. My primary was higher than 41.76% of people who have taken this test.
Oh, fuck. I don't want to say mine. Oh.
But it's okay. My secondary was also 24% higher. So yours was probably like only like a bit. What's your secondary say?
My secondary was 16%.
Okay, so I feel like...
Damn. My primary was a cool 69.
69?
Maybe I need to go talk to somebody.
Maybe. I don't know. Because that one was a little hard, because I didn't do a lot of like research into like what exactly that means. But because like you're still in like the middle, and I'm still like in the middle, I think that means like we're still functioning like, or we don't have that much to worry about.
Right.
Because the thing is, it's like... Psychology is such a spectrum. Like, you can have depression, and you can have it's a spectrum of depression. You can have anxiety, it's depression.
Yes.
Same with, like, having, like, cognitive disorders, like having,
Here, guys, what we're going to do, since we can end it after this, and we'll talk about it. Let's do one live. You guys can kind of see what the questions are.
Yeah.
So, success is based on survival of the fittest. I am not concerned about the losers. And you either disagree, kind of disagree, neutral, agree, or kind of agree, or agree. I'm just going to put everything neutral.
Yeah.
I find myself in the same kinds of trouble time after time. For me, what's right is whatever I can get away with. I am often bored. In today's world, I feel justified in doing anything I can get away with to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
I find that I am able to pursue one goal for a long time. My main purpose in life is getting as many goodies as I can. I don't plan anything very far in advance. Making a lot of money is my most important goal. I quickly lose interest in tasks I start. I let others worry about higher values. My main concern is with the bottom line. Most of my problems are due to the fact that other people just don't understand me. People who are stupid enough to get ripped off usually deserve it. I think that's where I fucked up, because I was like, well...
I think that's where mine kind of went up a little bit,
if you're fucking dumb and you fall for dumb shit, I don't feel bad for you.
Yeah.
Before I do anything, I carefully consider the possible consequences. Looking out for myself is my top priority. I have been, and I also put that one pretty high because like you gotta watch your own back.
Yeah.
I have been in a lot of shouting matches with other people. I tell other people what they want to hear, so they will do what I want them to do. When I get frustrated, I often let off steam by blowing my top. I would be upset if my success came at someone else's expense. Love is overrated. I often admire a really clever scam.
That was mine. I for the clever scam, I had to put. I agree because the thing is,
it's fascinating.
It's fascinating.
See, we're on the same page.
That's where I know my score went way
up. Let's see here. I make a point of trying not to hurt others in pursuit of my goals. I enjoy manipulating other people's feelings. I feel bad if my words or actions cause someone else to feel emotional pain. Even if I were trying very hard to sell something, I wouldn't lie about it. Cheating is not justified because it's unfair to others. Submit. No, I don't want to do your other thing. Sorry. Oh, wait, yes, and then no.
Yeah, the question one, the word one was hard because I just guessed because I just was like, what does that word make me feel? And I couldn't even pronounce 75% of the words.
Yeah. So if you do, me neither. Yeah. If you do neutral on everything, you're a 3 on both.
Oh, okay.
And you're 75% and 71%.
So if you're neutral about everything, it's kind of like you are just in general.
You're kind of a psychopath. You're like middle ground. So we're both, I guess in the grand scheme of things, we're both not.
We're both not, because the thing is the high is 5.
Yeah.
So I feel like we both, because even though you got 2.8, you're still like...
Most people do rate lower, so I imagine if you're in the 3.5 plus, that's like, okay, well...
There we go.
I find it fascinating. I bet a lot of money that if this was given at sales conventions and business owners and different things like that, you'd probably see a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Higher up.
Yeah, I think so too. But yeah, so that was our, whatchamacallit.
Well, and like I said at the start of this, I would love to do more episodes that are building on the psychology, because I know this really fascinates you. I'm fascinated by it. So like, I see no reason why we can't do like every month, every couple months, like another psychology episode diving into a different sect of why psychology with serial killers. I
want to do, this one I'm thinking about doing more of like, on my own, just because it's like, I want to do maybe a 35, 40 minute, little like fun little, stream about, because I was going to do it today, but we're kind of going far enough, and this was just more of like a fun thing, and I want to do a little bit more research on it, because the thing is, I'm not someone who really believes in zodiac signs and like things like that. I just think it's interesting that there's a lot of correlations with serial killers, the most pronounced known ones, and their sign, and I kind of want to do like some research on it and read the stars per se,
right?
Because like I don't really believe in it, because the thing is I'm a Cancer, so I'm supposed to be a little crybaby bitch, but for the most part I haven't cried in over a year, so it's like
shouts
out, but it's like things like that it's like obviously just because I'm a Cancer doesn't mean I'm a crybaby bitch.
Yeah.
Just because you're a Pisces or a Scorpio doesn't mean you're going to be a serial killer. But I think it's very fascinating that the majority of serial killers we know are Pisces and Scorpios. Right. So I kind of want to do some research on that and do like my own little a little segment on that. So.
Yeah, I think that would be great, and I also think that there's a couple of things I want to do. But as far as going into the future, so we're going to be off next week.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back and we'll do Sons of Sam.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a better idea of when we'll start doing weekly stuff.
I think after the next one, I can definitely have more. I'll have enough information to start doing weekly ones. Because because even though I work Saturdays somewhat now, like if we moved this one to next Saturday, I was off at 2.
Yeah.
So, like, I could do one later. Or I can do one before I go in, because I normally start... Because the schedules really differentiate. There's not, like, a time schedule. But I can do one before, after. I could even do one on a Friday real quick. Or, you know, things like that. So
when we're doing episodes alone, like, I'm going to try and consistently stay on Saturday, but not at the same times, maybe. Yeah. Like, maybe I'll do it earlier. But if it's on a Friday, like, it'll be fine. Scenery-wise, I'm not sure... I imagine you'll just do it at your house. You're welcome to come here and do them if you'd like to make the drive, but that's up to you. When I do my own, it'll be at the same place.
I'm thinking about doing it at my house, but the thing is, I'm trying to think because where my desk is located, behind me, I have 2 doors, and I'm trying to think of like decorations because I haven't decorated my room yet. So I'm kind of thinking like the only singular thing I have hung up in my house is the Steve Buscemi oil painting I have. So obviously, as soon as I framed that, I put that up.
If you do bathroom episodes, I'm not mad about that.
I could easily. I could do like get ready with me's.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting segment.
Yeah.
You can try that one.
Get ready with me while I talk about true crime.
Because that's that one girl that does it, and she does it really well. And
I like that idea.
Yeah. But,
I think that's the cool part about what our plan is, right? Is like this, when we're together, is always going to be this same setting.
Yeah.
But on our own, we're going to be able to let our own little, like, ideas and personality and, aesthetics flare. Like, I kind of want to make, and I don't know how good I'm going to be at it, but I want to do more of, like, someone like an expo. Like, make episodes kind of like that, where it's like, has, like, that similar aesthetics. But we'll see.
We'll see. We'll have to see how it goes, and maybe that will give me more motivation to buy that gaming laptop or try to get it for free.
Send it.
Because the thing is, I definitely don't have the money to buy one, but I definitely want to get one, and I also know my laptop, I have to get Streamlabs and stuff on it, but not an issue. It's just
and before
my stream at my house, I have to set it up.
Yeah, and we'll hop on Zoom and we'll get the mic set back up.
Yeah.
Get it sounding all good.
Sound all good.
All right, everyone. Thank you guys for hanging out with us live, and everyone who listens on the back end.
We really appreciate you guys, obviously.
Yep. Make sure to give us a like, follow us up, do all that fun stuff. We're trying to get to 50 subs on YouTube and 50 followers on like our Spotify. Or if you want to rate, give us a rating. That'd be cool. Let us know what we can do better. TrueCrimeJunks.com is our website. TrueCrimeJunks@gmail.com is our email if you want to reach out to us. And then True Crime Drunks on Instagram and Twitter. And then personal.
I have an Instagram that I don't use as often as I should. Books, Coffee, Bees. Probably start using that more in the next couple weeks. Or HollyLee17 is my other personal Instagram. It's just selfies if you are interested.
Yep. And then for me, Top Shelfers, my other podcast, and I do a bunch of shit on there. So
yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you next time.
Bye.